Okay, so your test will be taken on Thursday for the section 3 and 4 of lesson 4 of history. Okay, I guess after this week we will have a break for a few days break for the teachers also, just like we have it every year. But I'm not sure how when the session break will begin. I don't have the dates with me right now. Okay, so now let's begin. Let's do a quick recap of what we have understood in the last session. Okay, we understood what were the situations like in the 18th century, what the polity was like, economy, society, and religion. And mainly it was a church which was ruling. The kind of society, if we look at the European society, it was a church which was most important. And also there was feudalism in Europe at that time. You have already studied for the Indian history, children, you already know about during the time of the Delhi Sultanate and during the time of Mughals, you had something known as the Mansabdari system or Jagirdari system, wherein the Mansabs were assigned to the Mansabdars, and they in turn used to collect the taxes for a certain land which was assigned to them. They were responsible for it, and they had their own army. They used to take care of their land, and they used to collect the revenue or taxes from the people, and they used to send it to the king, who was at the center, just like in the Mughal period or during the time of Delhi Sultanate. I hope you are all are aware about it. There was certain tax which was known as jizya. The people who were non-Muslims, they were supposed to pay this tax. So this was the case in India. This was a feudalism was in India also. Similarly, when we talk about the 18th century Europe, during those times, there were no clear-cut political demarcations of different countries. Just like now, today we have the Republic of France, we have Germany, we have Great Britain, and we have many other European countries, Netherlands. Okay, so these kind of clear-cut country-wise demarcation was not there by the late 18th century, but it is by the middle of the 19th century that these demarcations were clearly visible, after there was a division of Europe on the basis of the languages spoken or the culture that was there, or the races which have been living there in Europe. Okay, this is what is more important about Europe. So when we look at the European society, we have also talked about the age of reason or enlightenment, which began with the 13th century, and before that period is known as the dark ages, when people were not interested in education or exploration or finding out anything about the world. So that period from 600 AD to 1300, or roughly 1200 or mid of 13th century AD, is known as the Dark Ages. And after that, the age of reasoning, or which is known as the Enlightenment, began in Europe. People started thinking about things, why things happen. For example, about the Earth being a sphere or it is a flat surface. Okay, in your previous classes, you must have heard about the Spanish scholar Ferdinand Magellan. He took a round of the entire Earth, and he discovered that the Earth.
Ma'am, your voice is cracking.
Ma'am, someone not able to join. Excuse me, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
And the mute away.
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, before this, have you heard anything before this? Anything you were able to hear?
Only little bit in middle it was.
Okay, now I'll start over all over again, because there is some sound issue here. Let me begin again. Children, I was talking to.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, someone is not able to join.
I have admitted all. Who's not able to join? Who's not able to join? Can you tell me?
Ma'am, I was not able to join.
Now are you there? Is it Risu?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you have joined. So shall we begin? And if there is any disturbance in between, children, don't worry about it, because I'm recording these sessions and I will be sharing it on your WhatsApp, and I'm uploading them on my YouTube channel. So you can again replay the entire session and you will not miss anything. Okay. This is a connectivity issue. Sometimes at the other end, some children are not able to listen to me. Even if you have missed anything, I will send a video on WhatsApp. Am I clear to everyone now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall I begin now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll share the screen again. Yes, is this visible to you? Is the screen visible? Okay, okay, and I'm audible to everyone now. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we were discussing in the last class, we discussed about Europe in 18th century. We talked about the dark age in Europe before the 12th century. And in the 13th century, we have something known as the age of reason or enlightenment happening in Europe. I also talked about feudalism in Europe. I gave you the example of India. Just like in India, we had the Mansabdari system or the Jagirdari system, wherein the Mansabdar was responsible for a certain area which was known as the Mansab. A mansab or a piece of land was given to the mansabdar, and he was responsible for collecting the taxes and revenue from the farmers and the artisans, and then send it to the government treasury. Yes. I would suggest if you can type your questions on the chat, children, so that it is easier for me to understand what you are asking. If you have any queries, please don't disturb in between. Please type your questions on the chat and I will respond to you. Okay? Any problem? Okay. Shall I continue? Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I was giving you the example of the Mansabdari system in India. Yes, so similarly, just like in India, we had the Mansabdari system or the Jagirdari system. Here some student is asking me about the kings and the queens belonging to the second estate. I will come to that part. I will come to the French society. Just give me some time. Let me recap what we have studied so far. Let me quickly cover that part. Okay, I'll come to that. I'm going to explain the French society today. Okay, similarly, we have the feudalism in Europe. That is what is something related to the French society. Also, another feature of Europe in 18th century is the slave trade and human trafficking. I have already explained that also to you. Upheavals or revolts against the monarchical or aristocratic powers that led to revolutions leading to the new ideas emerging, which were known as the ideas of liberty, fraternity, and equality. I hope this is clear to everyone. Any doubts on this? Because last class you were having many questions. If you have any questions, ask them now. Okay. Now, ideas of liberty, freedom, and equality. Have you ever wondered how and where these ideas originate? For example, if we talk about democracy and equality, these ideas were not something of the old times. These ideas have very slowly and gradually evolved in different areas of the different countries of the world in different manner. Now, when we talk about the ideas of liberty, freedom, and equality, it was in the late 18th century when the French Revolution happened. The new philosophers, the new thinkers, they started thinking about equality in the society. But why they emerged? What was the reason behind it? The reason is the French society, the way the society was, everybody wanted to break free from the rules that the church or the clergymen or the church were imposing. Okay, there was a new system of governments that emerged after the revolution of the French Revolution, which is also known as the Reign of Terror. Okay, impact of the new thinkers and philosophers. I have already mentioned few names of philosophers. Can you please let me know? Last class, I mentioned the name of few philosophers from France. Please raise your hands. We had Montesquieu, we had Rousseau, who were some philosophers who had a great impact on the thinking. Yes, Nehal, you want to answer the question? Yes.
John Rocky and Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Yeah, Jean Rousseau, and then we have Montesquieu also, and another one. Who was another one? Yes, Nehal?
John Locke.
Yeah. So these were some of the philosophers who had a great impact on the minds of the people, and they spread these ideas of the new ideas of liberty and freedom. I will discuss this in further great detail about the philosophers and then in the later slides. Now, interpretation of new ideas by other countries happened once the revolution happened in France. It had an impact on other countries, and they interpreted these new ideas in their own way. Okay, then introduction. We have already done the introduction of the French Revolution. What was the actual event? What exactly happened in the French Revolution on a specific day? What happened on that particular day? There was a storming of the fortress prison, the Bastille, on the 14th of July, 1789 by the citizens of France. But why did they do it? They felt that there was a hoarding of ammunition. What do you understand by hoarding of ammunition? Anybody? Hoarding of ammunition was
Keeping the things for a long time, and when the demand is increased, we remove it to sell.
that's known as hoarding. But what do you mean by ammunition? Ammunition are
And the
weapons.
arms.
Yeah, arms and weapons. So this hoarding was done by the king. Why he did it? He wanted to use it against the masses and the people of the third estate who were about to rebel and revolt against him. So the people got to know about it, and they attacked the fortress, the Bastille. Okay, the Bastille was a symbol of the despotic king Louis XVI. He became the king. Okay, he was just at the age of 20. He became the king of France. Okay, and when did he became the in the year 1774? He became the king of France. And now this incident is happening when? In the year 1789, because by that time there was too much exploitation of the third estate people. Okay, I will come to that in further detail. Okay, also everyone was hating the king. Why they were hating the king? Because he was a monarch, he was a despot, and he was very, very cruel. Okay, after the destruction, in fact, people were so happy after beheading the king and the queen. They beheaded the king, and even they killed the governor, and they beheaded the governor and took his head, and they just showed his head around in the to the public. And so this was a kind of rage was there against the king and his monarchical rule. Okay, and after the destruction, stone fragments were kept as souvenirs. Souvenirs is something that you keep as a memory. Okay, so they destructed the fortress prison, and the stone fragments were kept as souvenirs. So this is the event, the actual event that happened in 1789. So this was the beginning of the revolution. Okay, it began with the chain of events started by affected middle class, and then the lower class, leading to the execution of the king, and followed by the revolt against the monarchy. I've already explained you what is a monarchy. Monarchical form of government is the one in which there is a king, and only the king's children, they only can assume power, and they only their rule as a despot is followed. Okay, now the new ideas of liberty, fraternity, equality was the outcome of this revolt. And in the we have looked at we have seen that video last time. So this was a recap of what we have seen in the video of how what happened in the event on the 14th of July 1789. So when this question comes, you'll have to elaborate all these points. I hope this is clear to everyone. Any questions on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now we will come to the
No,
causes
no,
of
ma'am.
French Revolution. Yes. Yes. Any questions? Children, we have just seen what happened, how the French Revolution began. Okay, now we will look at what were the main causes of the French Revolution. Somebody is asking some questions here. Okay, Ritu is saying that I am not very clear, clearly audible to her. So Ritu, don't worry. This video I will be sharing on WhatsApp. You can replay, and at that time, everything will be clear to you. Don't worry. Okay. So now first, there are three main causes of the French Revolution: the social cause, economic cause, and political cause. So now first we will look at the French society. Okay, the French society during the late 18th century. Children, as you can see in this triangle, we have the king Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. She belonged to Austria. The first estate was of the clergy, which means the church was very much important. And then we have the nobility. Let me tell you, children, that the first and the second estate, which means the clergy and the nobility, never had to pay any kind of taxes. Okay, so there was no financial burden on them. They were the privileged classes. On the other hand, the third estate, in the third estate, there were artisans, merchants, bourgeois means the business class, city workers, beggars, the lower class and the middle class people belonged to the third estate, and they were supposed to pay a tax, which was known as tithe. We discussed this, we have seen that in the video also. They had to pay a tax, and it was levied by the church. Okay, there were two different types of taxes. One was known as the tithe, a tax levied by the church comprising 1/10 of the agricultural produce. So it was mainly for the farmers and the laborers. Okay, so 1/10 of the agricultural produce was the tax which was supposed to be given to the church. But first and second estate, which means the clergy and the nobility, were not supposed to pay any kind of tax. There was another tax which was known as the tax to be paid directly to the state, which means this tax went directly to the king, Louis XVI. Okay, so now this is the kind of society which was there, and it was a very oppressive kind of a system, feudal system, wherein the middle class and the lower workers, lower working class, were feeling very much oppressed. And because of too much economic and financial burden, there was a growing rage against the monarch and the clergy and the nobility. Are there any questions here? If you have any questions, you can ask me the question. So this is in general here. Let me tell you one more thing here, children. This is specific triangle, and the first, second, and third estate was not only there in France. This kind of a system was there in entire Europe. It was not specific to France only. In Europe in general, the church was most powerful during those time in the 18th century. If you have any queries, let me know, children. Okay, I'll move on to the next picture here. Okay, before yes, you can ask your question.
Why did the church collect the taxes when the king was getting the taxes by the people?
Why did the church? Can you please repeat? I'm not able to. Okay, somebody is asking me, ma'am, can you explain clergy? Clergy are the people of the church. Okay, just like we have right now in Rome, you have seen the Vatican City, you have the Pope and the clergymen. So they are religious men. So they are known as the clergy. Okay, so they give some orders and everybody has to obey. Okay, any other doubt? Somebody was asking me another question about why the clergy had to do. Why the clergy was not supposed to pay any taxes. So this was the rule. The clergy was not supposed to pay anything directly to the king. Any other questions you can type in case if you have any doubts. Yes.
Ma'am, why did the people give taxes to the church while they were giving the taxes to the king also?
You're saying that why did the people agree to the church? This is what your question is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So let me explain this to you in an easier manner. You know, we'll take example from India. We have the Varna system. You already know. We have the Brahmins, we have the Kshatriyas, this division on the basis of the work. People were the classes, the castes were divided. You already know. So do you think it was easy for during those times, in the old times, to not obey the religious heads? If we say that we are not ready to follow the Brahmins, can we do that? Or if we say that if the king is levying any taxes on the general people, or the worker class, or the farmers, so can the farmers say that we will not pay any taxes? Is it easy to follow? This is my question to you.
Mm.
No, right? So the point is, you have to think about what those times were like. We are here about the 18th century France or 18th century Europe. During those times, the church and religion was most important. They have just come out of the dark ages. Of course, the age of reasoning was going on, industrial revolution was going on. People were still finding out the realities of life, the facts of life. People were not aware during those times. Scientifically and technologically, they were not that strong during those times. So there were many misconceptions, superstitions. So that was one of the reasons people were not aware. So that was the reason they were following whatever the church was telling them to do. I hope this answers your question. Okay, somebody's asking priests and clergy. Yes, yes, beta, priests and clergy are same here. Clergy, when we're talking about clergymen, it's mainly the religious men in the church. Any other questions? You can let me know. Okay, shall I proceed now? Anybody can say yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, okay.
Yes,
So now,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, so now before we do this activity on explain why the artist has portrayed the nobleman as the spider and the peasant as the fly, before we do this activity, let me just give you a glimpse of your first section of the French society from the chapter of history. French society during the 18th century. We will also talk about the economy. I have already discussed about the society. Now we'll talk about the economy and also the political system in France by the late 18th century. Let me share that slide with all of you. Some PDFs. Is this screen visible to all?
Ma'am.
not yet.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's
Okay, children,
visible.
here you can see
ma'am.
this
Now it's
image.
visible.
The fort is being demolished here. Is the picture visible to you? How the people are rebelling. The middle class and the lower class people are rebelling against the king. So this is a picture of the storming of the Bastille. Okay. Now we'll come to the French society during the late 18th century. I've already explained. Let's read out about the economic situation in France. I've already explained what kind of society. The first estate, that is clergy. Second estate is the nobility, and third estate, the big businessmen, merchants, court officials, lawyers, peasants and artisans, small peasants, landless laborers, and servants. So this diagram you should keep in mind. Okay. So this here explains you the French society by the late 18th century. Now we'll talk about the economy. That is the second point. In the year 1774, Louis XVI became the king. He belonged to the Bourbon family. Okay, and he was 20 years old at that time, and he married Austrian Princess Marie Antoinette. We have already covered that. Upon his succession, the new king found an empty treasury, which means there was nothing in the treasury by that time. During those times, long years of war had drained the financial resources of France. So France had no money at that time. The treasury had no money. So added to this was the cost of maintaining an extravagant court at the immense palace of Versailles. So the kings, they lived a lavish life. Extravagant means which is very they use very expensive things, and the kings live in a very lavish manner. So even when there was nothing in the treasury, the French king and queen, they were still living a very extravagant life. Under Louis XVI, France helped the 13 American colonies to gain independence from the common enemy, that is Great Britain. Now I'll give you a quick glimpse of what this means. During that time, when we're talking about the late 18th century, American War of Independence was happening. There were 13 colonies in America, and it was, you already are aware that America, the United States, was discovered by Columbus. Yes, he went out in search of India, but he reached America, and he saw the red skinned people over there, and he named them Red Indians. And that's when the people from Great Britain, because they were looking in search for colonies and raw materials and new markets for their produce, so they found America, and they got settled there. And when they reached there, they started exploiting the people over there also, and slave trade was also going on over there. So now France was in favor of the people there and against the Great Britain, because France was a rival of Great Britain during that time. So now they spent a lot of money in helping the 13. There were the entire American continent was divided into 13 colonies. So to gain control, independence from their common enemy, Britain. So over there also they spent a lot of money. The war added more than $1 billion to a debt that had already risen to more than $2 billion. Okay, somebody is raising hands. Let me know if you have any questions. Any questions? Okay, so the war added more than $1 billion is the currency of France to a debt that had already risen to more than $2 billion. Lenders who gave the state credit now began to charge 10% on loans. So the French government was obliged to spend an increasing percentage of its budget on interest payments alone. I hope this is clear to you. Any doubts here? So they were obliged, they had to pay the increasing percentage of the budget on the interest payments. So from one interest.
Your voice is cracking a lot.
It's okay. I will be sharing this video with you all. When you play the video, it will be clear. The voice will be clear. Okay. Now, lenders who gave the state credit now began to charge 10% interest on loans. They were giving loans, so they were charging interest. So the French government was obliged to spend an increasing percentage of its budget on increasing payment alone. To meet its regular expenses, such as the cost of maintaining an army, the court, running government offices or universities, the state was forced to increase these taxes. So now, children, you're already aware, when you look at this picture, the clergy and the nobility was not paying any taxes. So whom do you think will have to pay all the taxes? Who was suffering from all that burden of paying the interest and the taxes? Which estate?
Third estate.
The third estate.
estate.
All the
Third
businessmen,
estate.
merchants, court officials, lawyer, even the educated middle class, peasants, low class people, everybody had to share this burden of paying this increasing debt interest. Okay, to meet its regular expenses, such as the cost of maintaining an army, court, running government offices or universities, the state was forced to increase the taxes. Yet even this measure would not have sufficed. Even then also they were not able to pay the amount of debt they had, pay back the amount of debt they have taken for the loans. The French society in the 18th century was divided into 3 estates. I have already explained this to you. So this I need not explain again about how the first estate, second estate, and the third estate. Do you have any queries here? Okay, now here some more information is given. Peasants made up to about 90% of the population. So if I gave you this information, yes, in the last class also 97% of the total population belonged to the third estate. 97. So 90 is of the peasants. However, only a small number of them own the land and they cultivate. About 60% of the land was owned by the nobles, the church, and other richer members of the third estate. The members of the first two estates, that is the clergy and the nobility, enjoyed certain privileges by birth. The most important of these were exemption from paying taxes to the state. This is the most important one. They were not supposed to pay any taxes. The nobles further enjoyed feudal privileges. These included feudal dues, which they extracted from the peasants. Peasants were obliged to render services to the lord, to work in the houses, in his house and fields, to serve in the army, or to participate in building roads. So I hope this makes it clear what the French society was during those times. Okay, so the church, how church was more powerful. So I've already explained this to you. Tithe was the tax which the peasants had to pay. 1/10 of the agricultural produce they had to pay to the church. And taille was a tax which was directly paid to the state treasury. Any doubt here? Okay, so the burden of financing activities of the state through taxes was borne entirely by the third estate alone. So this was a very important section we are covering. Now I'll quickly come to this picture here. Okay, here this is the activity which was there in the PPT. Also explain why the artist has portrayed the nobleman as a spider and the peasant as the fly. See, here the meaning of this, or whatever is being written here, is explained here. The nobleman is the spider, the peasant the fly. The more the devil has, the more he wants. So you can see by below the sack of grains, something is written in French which has been translated in English, and it is written here. The more the devil has, the more he wants. And also here another explanation is written. The translation of French language is written here. This poor fellow brings everything: grain, fruits, money, salad. The fat lord sits there ready to accept it all. He does not even care to grace him with a look. I hope you can understand what the artist is trying to convey here by this picture. Okay, so you may get this question in your exam also, like this, in a picture description. Explain why the artist was portrayed the nobleman as a spider and the peasant as the fly. Just like a spider eats the peasants, eats the fly. Similarly, the nobleman is just sitting there. He's not doing anything and he's getting everything for free. He doesn't have to toil hard. He doesn't have to work hard. All hard work has to be done by the people of the third estate. Now I'll share the PPT slide again. I have some suggestions for you children today. So this was one activity. There are two fun activities I'm recommending as homework for you all. Now the time is getting over, only 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes are there. So please note down these two fun activities, all of you. Find out political symbols of France in the 18th century. Make a word file. I hope you all can make a word file on your computer or on mobile. Yes? I hope you're listening, children. Please say yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Nehal. Okay. So now this is the assignment for you today. One assignment. So you have to find out the political symbols of France in the 18th century, make a word file and paste them and mention the meaning of those symbols to show how they stand for liberty, equality, and fraternity. In your textbook also on page number, let me tell you, on page number 12 and 13, some symbols are already there. So I want you to find out some symbols, paste them and write a meaning, their meaning, what they meant. Okay. Similarly, second activity is a movie watch. I recommend this. This is a comedy movie, The Visitor, Bastille Day. You can watch this movie at home during your holidays or whenever you feel like, and give me a feedback on this. Please note the name, note down the name of the movie also. You can watch it with your family.
Is it available on YouTube?
I guess it will be, or you can try to find out, search on the net. These days we can download a movie. Anyone who is able to download it, they can share to others also. So this is a fun activity I'm giving you as a homework. And also the first homework also, by which day will you give it to me?
Which movie, ma'am?
It's there
Which
on the
movie?
screen. I've written the name here on the screen. The Visitors. It's a comedy movie, okay?
English movie? English
Yes,
movie,
it is
ma'am?
English. Yes, yes, it is an English
Yeah.
movie. Okay. Now there are some responses here. No, it can be translated also. Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, actually, it's not available on YouTube.
Let me see if I'm able to find it. I'll share it with you. Or if not, then I'll give you some